loving kindness so that beings may escape from suffering and find happiness. As a result of this mind of loving kindness, they themselves gain merit and teach others how to gain merit. Gathering the ripened fruits of their merit, these bodhisattvas sometimes become noble Chakravartin kings, rich in kind deeds. Sometimes also they leave home, practice the dhyanas, guide beings, and teach them how to practice the dhyanas to be reborn in pure universes and there enjoy the happiness. Finally, when they become Buddha, they enter into nirvana without residue with immeasurable and incalculable beings. Compared to the mind of emptiness, their vows are much more salutary, and still other things, including their relics, are very beneficial. Furthermore, if a single bodhisattva completely saved all beings, the other bodhisattvas would have no one to save. From then on, there would be no more future Buddhas, the lineage of the Buddhas would be interrupted and other faults of the same kind would ensue. This is why a single Buddha does not save all beings without exception. Finally, what is called the nature of beings is only a product of error. It is not a real thing nor is it determinate. If all the Buddhas of the 3 times and the 10 directions went to look for a being, they would find none. Then how would they save all completely? 8. Is the idea of salvation is purely conventional? Question. If the beings who are empty of intrinsic nature cannot all be saved, a small number of beings will be equally empty. Then how do the Buddhas save a small number of them? Answer. I have just said that if the Buddhas of the 3 times and the 10 directions went to look for beings, they would find not a single one and, consequently, that there is no one to save. If you object, why do they not save them all? You fall into a questionable position, a position from which you cannot extricate yourself. And if you object, since the categories of few and many do not apply to beings, how could the Buddha save a small number of them? You fall into an even more questionable position. Furthermore, from the absolute point of view, the true nature of things, there are no beings and there is no salvation. It is merely conventionally that we affirm the existence of salvation. As for you, you seek the absolute in the conventional, which is inadmissible. It is as if you were looking for a precious pearl in a brick or a stone. Never would you find it there. Furthermore, all the qualities acquired by the Buddhas in the interval of time between their first production of the mind of awakening until the disappearance of the holy Dharma. All these qualities are formations, limited, measurable, having a beginning and an end. This is why the number of beings to be converted must also be measurable. It is not possible, with measurable qualities, fruits of retribution of a given number of causes and conditions, to completely save beings without number in their totality. It is like a strong man. No matter how powerful his bow and no matter how far his arrow can fly, it will necessarily finally fall down. Or it is like the great fire at the end of the kalpa that burns the Trisahasra Lokadhatu. Its brilliance is immense. But although it burns for a long time, it is finally extinguished. It is the same for the Bodhisattva become Buddha. From his first production of the mind of awakening, he holds the bow of exertion in his hand, wields the arrow of wisdom, penetrates deeply into the Buddha Dharma and accomplishes the great deeds of the Buddhas, but he also must end up becoming extinguished. When the Bodhisattva has won the knowledge of Dharmas in all their aspects, his body emits rays that light up innumerable universes. Each of these rays creates numberless bodies that save numberless beings in the 10 directions by metamorphosis. After his nirvana, the 84,000 articles of the Dharma that he has taught and his relics convert beings. But, like the fire at the end of the kalpa, having shone for a long time, he too must become extinguished. Question. You yourself say that these rays create innumerable bodies by metamorphosis that save the innumerable beings of the 10 directions. Why did you sometimes say that, due to measurable causes and conditions, the number of beings to be converted should also be measurable? Answer. There are 2 kinds of immeasurable. 1. the true immeasurable which cannot be measured by any holy individual. Space, nirvana, and the true nature of being cannot be measured in any way. 2. Measurable things which only weak people are incapable of measuring. For example, the weight of Mount Sumeru, or the number of drops of water in the great ocean. The Buddhas and Bodhisattvas know these things, but they are unknown to gods and humans. It is the same for the number of beings to be converted by the Buddhas. The Buddhas know it, but as it is not within your range, it is described as immeasurable. Finally, dharmas, coming from causes and conditions, have no intrinsic nature. Since their intrinsic nature does not exist, they are eternally empty and, in this eternal emptiness, the being does not exist. Thus the Buddha said, "When I was seated on the sphere of enlightenment, my wisdom was non-existent. Like the empty fist that deceives little children, I have saved the entire world. The true nature of things is the mark of beings. But to seize the mark of beings is to stray far from the true path. Always thinking about the eternally empty. A person does not follow the path. He invents imaginary characteristics. For dharmas that are without birth or cessation. Imaginings, reflections, concepts are the net of Mara. Not moving, not standing still. That is really the seal of the Dharma." 9. Differences between happiness and compassion. Question. If happiness is subdivided into two parts, the mind of loving kindness and the mind of joy, why is not the mind of compassion that contemplates suffering considered to be of two parts? Answer. Happiness, loved by everyone, is important. This is why it is divided into two parts, loving kindness and joy. On the other hand, suffering, which nobody loves, which nobody commemorates, is not divided into two parts. Furthermore, when happiness is experienced, the mind is soft. But when suffering is endured, the mind is hard. The story of Vitasaka. When Waitajo, the younger brother of King Asoka, was king of Jambudvipa for 7 days, he was permitted to indulge in the 5 objects of enjoyment on a grand scale. At the end of the 7 days, King Asoka asked him, "As king of Jambudvipa, did you experience happiness and joy?" Vitasaka answered, "I saw nothing, heard nothing, noticed nothing." Why? Because each morning, some Kandalas rang a bell and shouted, "Of the 7 days that you have been granted, so many have already gone by, and at the end of the 7 days, you will die." Hearing this proclamation, although I was king of Jambudvipa and loaded down with the 5 objects of enjoyment, my sorrow and my suffering were so great that I heard nothing and saw nothing. From that, we know that the power of suffering is strong whereas that of happiness is weak. When a person who experiences happiness throughout his body is stabbed someplace, all his happiness disappears and he feels nothing but the pain of his wound. The power of happiness is so weak that 2 parts are needed to make it strong. That of suffering is so strong that it needs only 1 part. 3. Fruits of the immeasurables. Question. What fruits of retribution does the person who is practicing the 4 immeasurables receive? Answer. The Buddha said, "He who enters into the concentration of loving kindness receives, at the present, 5 benefits. I. He is not burned if he enters fire. 2. He does not die if he swallows poison. 3. The soldier's sword does not wound him. 4. He will not die a violent death. The good gods protect him. Having been of benefit to innumerable beings, he receives immense merit. By